Hey everyone, this is Scott Weidenkibowitz, and today I'm going to show another photo critique. This one is of a beautiful landscape. It's a black and white conversion, and you can see it looks a little pixelated. That's because I'm showing a small JPEG on a full screen right now, so it's a little pixelated. The photographer only sent me the small one, and that's fine for the photo critique. I'm assuming that the original is in a RAW, and you're going to see why in a little bit. But I can point out right here uh, briefly of why RAW is going to come into play. You can see this washed out sky right here. But before I get into the critique, I have to point out that this is only a matter of opinion. My critique of the photograph is going to be different than someone else's critique of the photograph, and there is no wrong way to process a photograph. It's all a matter of the photographer's vision and point of view, what they wanted to do. So the photographer is right how they did it. This is just what I would do differently and possible ways they can improve. So here we go. Here is the original photograph, and let's go back. The final one, the original, and the final one. So the first thing I noticed between the two is this halo going on right here. Now I don't know if this was an HDR processing or if it was just too much processing on the sky, but that is probably why this halo is showing up over here, because it's not really showing in the original photograph. But in the original, I can see here, this is also a JPEG, not a RAW file. You can see that there is some washed out sky right here. Now in RAW, it will be easy or easier to bring this back. In a JPEG, the processing that you'll see me do, it will not be perfect because in the JPEG, I cannot really recover blown out highlights in the sky. In a RAW, you've got more chance because it's capturing more data, more information. So I'm going to go into the Develop console in Adobe Lightroom. And the first thing I'm going to do is the first thing I do with any photograph, especially wide-angle shots. This was shot at a 20mm lens at f10. Is I go to Lens Correction, enable the correction, remove chromatic aberration, and level the photograph. And right away you can see that's a big difference. Let's go before and after. Big difference between the two. Now it looks straighter. Any distortion from the 20mm has been fixed, and so on and so on. The next thing I do is I go up to tonal curve and I automatically put that up to medium. Get that nice little S-curve going on. I can always increase it if I wanted to. I always start with medium. Then I go all the way to the top to basic, and the first thing I want to do is check my whites and blacks. So I'm going to click on whites, hit the Alt Option key, and you can see all those blown out highlights. Now I'm going to bring it down to the point where all those others that you see around the blown out highlights are not so blown out, and now they're gone. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the blacks and go the opposite until I see just a little bit of blacks clipping. You can see at the bottom right, and then I'll release. So right away, you got a little bit of a difference. You can see a little bit more contrast. It's got a little bit more punch to it, not too much. The next thing I want to do is touch this sky. So I'm going to bring down the gradient tool and make myself a nice gradient and bring it down just below the horizon because I want to take care of this little bit of a washout right here too. And I'm going to bring back the highlights. And here, watch what happens. You can see already, as I keep going and going, getting a slight halo. It's going to be hard to see through YouTube, but there's a very slight halo right here. So this is probably what happened with the photographer, is that trying to recover the clouds. If it was not shot in RAW, you're going to get more chances for halos going on here and the blown out highlights here. But I'm going to bring it back a little so you don't see the halo so much, and bump up the contrast a little and bump up the clarity a little, and then bring back the saturation a little because it's actually going to be awkwardly aqua at the top right here because of the JPEG. So that's what I would do to the sky. If it was RAW, I would work on this more, probably bring this back as much as I possibly could. If this was me, I would have bracketed the scene and I would have gotten an exposure for the landscape here and then an exposure for the sky, or I would have used a graduated neutral density filter so that I can expose for here and just have the sky darker. Either way would have worked. If I'm traveling with filters, I'll do it with my filters. If I'm not, I'll do it with HDR or just a couple brackets and not do HDR, but just mask in one layer versus the other. Either is okay. The next thing I want to do, let's go back to here, is I want to work on the overall highlights and shadows. So I'm going to bring up the shadows just a little bit and pump up that contrast just a little. And here's the before and here's the after, so you can see what's been happening. The next thing I want to do is actually want to get rid of this, and that's going to be tricky. Again, I'm not going to be perfect on this. I'm just going to do this as an example of what I would do. Is I would actually start, actually using the wrong tool, that's okay. I'm going to start here. And I would actually start getting rid of this tree on the side and let Lightroom take care of it. Now, we can do this all in one shot, a little bit easier. Oops. Let's do this. I'm going to just brush the whole thing out of here in one shot. It's not going to be perfect, as I said, but I would get rid of it because it's a little distracting seeing that tree just sort of sticking out from one side. And watch it just disappear. Again, not perfect, but it's gone. So if this was my actual photograph, I would take the time and either do this in Lightroom or do it in Photoshop to get rid of that tree that was sticking out over here. That's actually, might as well go in here and just fix the couple that I know are still there. And I might even fix that little bit of edge. Okay, so it's a little bit better. There's still some cloud work that has to be done over here, but again, it doesn't have to be perfect. This is just a photo critique. Before and after, you can see that it's a lot less distracting not having that tree there. That tree is a little distracting, takes away from the rest of the beautiful scene. The next thing I would want to do is I would actually warm this up a little because it was a little bit too cool. And now you can see it's much nicer tone. It brings more of the natural greens and blues out. And then I would go to the HSL, which is the hue, saturation, luminance. And I would actually increase the saturation of the greens because you can see that they're a little dull. We want to enhance those. The greens and the yellows a little bit. So now they're a little bit more enhanced. Here's before and after. And we could do the blue, but the problem is if we do the blue, we're going to sort of mess with the sky a little bit, which we're worried about. So I'm not going to touch the blue at this point. But if I wanted to, I could go through and I could even do it for the reds, the magentas, go through and do each color. Same thing with the luminance. Let's see if we can brighten that green a little bit. And brighten the yellow a little bit, make it stand out a little bit more. And then the last thing I want to do before I attempt the black and white conversion is to bring some more of your visual, more of your eye towards these rocks. So there's a couple ways to do this. The first way is I'm going to take the brush tool. Using this brush tool, I'm going to actually, first I'm going to hit O so that I'm showing the mask as I'm brushing. And I'm going to brush over these rocks right here, which are in the foreground. And I'm going to brush on these a little bit. And again, this is not perfect because it's just a critique. Brush on there, I'll brush on this one a little bit. And the reason why I'm doing this is, all I want to do, I'll hit O again to hide that, is I want to bump up the clarity a little bit more on these to really make those stand out, the contrast a little bit more, really make those stand out from the rest of the photograph. So, it's the mask, all right, so let's hide that. And again, before and after, it's looking good. And then now if I wanted to bring more of my eye, more of the viewer's eye to the front, I could go make another mask, or actually I could just grab this one and reduce the sharpness. And what that's going to do is actually blur the background to bring all the focus towards the front. So take a look before and after. So now your eye is focused all on the front. And that's probably what I would do here because one, we are a little distracted with the blown out sky. And two, this is a beautiful landscape with the rocks, these gorgeous rocks and the smooth icy water. So I think, in my opinion, I would actually work on that a little bit more. And you can see here that it's not perfect because there's still a little bit of crispness over here. Okay, so the photo's almost done. Now, if I want to make the photo to be black and white like the original photographer did, I could do it very easily. Now, the photographer, let's go back to that one real quick. You can see that it's sort of a darker black and white. Now, I'm not sure how it was processed, in what software or whatever, but it could be that it's just the way it was processed in color before it converted to black and white that made it so dark and brought out the halo over here. Oh, by the way, the photographer did remove the tree over here as well. So nice to see that. So anyway, so let's go back to this one. Now, for me, what I would do here is I would either bring this photograph into the Nik Silver Efex Pro or the ON1 Software Perfect Black and White, or depending on how this comes out, just leave it in Lightroom, because sometimes you don't need that other software. So I'm just going to click Convert to Black and White. And in one shot, it still looks like a beautiful black and white. This is what I would leave it like. I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't convert it anywhere else. I wouldn't go any further with the processing. I'd leave it like this, because to me, this is a very clean, simple black and white. The tones are nice. The histogram's, you know, a nice mountain. We've got a nice mix of you know, highlights, shadows, and if we wanted to, we can increase the contrast a little more, because once you get rid of the color, you don't have to worry about certain things as much. So, but you can see here that the halo over here is not so bad. The tree is gone. The only thing I'm concerned about is that blown out sky in the dead center at the top. But that's it. So let's compare the two. Here are the two photographs. Let's compare those. So you can see the one on the right is the original, and the one on the left is the one that I just did. Both are great. Both are a matter of opinion. That's really it. I hope that you learn from this. I hope that you know, you walk away having a new idea for another photo. And thanks for watching.